Ah, spring. That magical time of year where birds are chirping, flowers are blooming, and Easter bunnies? Where did that come from? Well, in this episode, we're going to be diving into just that. Once again, I was invited on to the Crypt radio show on Revolution Radio, joined by dear friend Will Keller as well, to continue the ongoing series that we've been diving into the origins of these holidays. We've done Halloween, we've done Valentine's Day, and now we're going to be getting into Easter, the spring equinox. What are the origins of this holiday? What is the ethos? What is the mindset and the philosophy behind that? And how did we become so detached from the true meaning? I have to say this was probably my favorite yet in this series, so this is one you don't want to miss, and watch all the way to the end because man, it is just action-packed all the way through. So that's coming up next. I hope you enjoy.
Welcome back, everybody. It is, of course, Monday, and you already know that if you're listening in because I am here every Monday, am I not? At least I have been for a long time, that's for sure. And welcome, everybody. I hope everybody had a great weekend, and I know I did. It was a good one. It was a cold one, but we did get snow since the last time I spoke with you. We did get a lot of snow, but it is gone again. It is melting. And it is amazing. It was a beautifully warm day today. I always try to give a little weather update because here the weather is crazy. And I looked up at the sky today right before I came down here and I saw them spraying again, so I have no idea what the weather's going to be for tomorrow. It's supposed to get warm here. That's what they're saying, but that could change so quickly. We're supposed to have nice weather in the next few days. It's supposed to warm right up. It was really, really cold, guys, the last few days here. I'm not joking. It was crazy, the weather changes that we're getting. And so who knows? I'll have to give you guys an update on Thursday. Got some great guests lined up, and this is going to be another great show. As you know, we've been covering a lot of the seasons, and I've had Will Keller on, and I've had Logan Hart on it. We've broken down Halloween, we've broken down Valentine's Day, and the origins of it, and I find this super interesting because I'm truly learning with you guys when I get these gentlemen on and they start breaking the origins down. I know a little bit, but I don't know the in-depth that these guys do, so I'm learning with you guys when I bring people on like this, and I'm definitely looking forward to this one. This one, we are going to be getting into Easter, and we're going to be getting into the season of sacrifice, and I think this is going to be a great show, one you're going to want to listen to again, because this is so important. So I'm just going to go ahead and welcome my first, I got Will on the line, so I'm going to welcome you, Will. Will, welcome back to the show, my friend.
Thanks, brother. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely.
Pleasure to be here.
Oh, I know it's going to be a good one. I'm very excited, as you can probably tell. I find I learned so much from you guys when you guys come on, you and Logan. I'm definitely going to be getting Logan on here in like 2 seconds. I'm just giving him a 1 minute heads up that I'm going to be calling him. And this is going to be a good one, Will. What do you think? Like, I mean, I wanted to do St. Patrick's Day, but I get it. I kind of blew it. That's my fault. I kind of booked wrong. And so I get why we're kind of not getting into that one, but we got Easter. We got the season of sacrifice. It's just as important, and we can hit St. Patrick's Day next year.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, these holy days are significant. The knowledge and the awareness is vital, and then we can utilize this because the social engineers are absolutely utilizing this information for dark agendas and to advance their whole agenda. So
right. No, I get it. Yeah, and that's what I find interesting because I always, as you know, because we talk a lot. I love the origins of things. I get the symptoms and I get all those things, and I'm done looking at those. I want to get to the root causes of things because I think that's how you, at least in gardening, when I got to kill a weed, you got to get to the root of it. You can hack away at the top of it all day long, and then 2 days later, the root's back up and doing its thing. You've got to get to the root, and I take that and I think about what's going on in our world. We have to get to the roots of the problem. And I think that, the breaking down these holidays and their meanings and the origins and going deep into it, at least it's a hack at the root, a part of it.
Absolutely. 100%, man. Awareness reveals choice, like my brother Logan Hart has stated in the past. And that means, obviously, if higher consciousness is the goal, consciousness is pattern recognition. So we are increasing our pattern recognition. That means we need to increase the knowledge, the information, correct information, which is knowledge, and it applies to the world.
Yeah, I agree. Are you with us, Logan?
I'm here.
Oh,
Hello.
Logan. Awesome. I'm so glad that I got you both back on here. I was saying Noel just at the start, and I was letting people know, like, this is such a. I'm learning with people as I hear you guys break down the origins of a lot of these holidays. I know a little bit. I've looked into them a little bit, but you guys really break them down right from this, like the origins, and I find it just as fascinating and valuable to learn this, like everyone that's listening. So I always look forward to these shows when I get you guys on to break this down, because I do, as I was saying to Will, I think there's a lot of great knowledge here and understanding where things come from. And when I think of Easter, that's always been one. I think I said that to you on both last ones that we did on the origins of Halloween and Valentine's Day. Like it amazes me how we get from the root of it, the origin of it, to where we have it now. And Easter is one of those ones too, where I'm like, how did we get to the origins of this to where we are now? So if you guys want, either one of you want to take over and break this down from the origins, I'm all ears.
Yeah, this has been a really fun and enlightening and fascinating series, and that it's kind of materialized. It started, with a single episode. I believe it was Halloween, and it was so powerful. We just kept going with it, and it's really shaping up to be something awesome. So I'm glad to be a part of it. Thanks for having me back onto the show. I'm not sure what I missed so far.
We're right at the start. We're diving in right at the beginning.
Yeah, it's so funny to think about. Well, not funny. It's actually pretty tragic. But what has happened to our connection to our ancient past, to our animistic roots as human beings, as indigenous peoples of Earth, and much like symbolically, the Christians would destroy old temples and build their Christian structures directly on top of the old site. That is exactly what they have done with our holidays as well. Instead of inventing their own stuff, they simply hijack and pervert and distort that which is sacred, that which did originally come from something pure and natural and divine. So This is no exception,
Mm-hmm. And you're so right when I think about that how it seems to be the way evil is that, and you said it perfect, Logan, that they pervert it. They kind of like hijack it. And I've learned that over many years now, is that it never seems to create anything new. It takes something that's good and pure and it just twists it. It morphs it into something that it's not. And I kind of see that as these holidays. It's like you were just breaking down, like it's just amazing what they do. What are your thoughts on this, Will?
Yeah, I agree 100%. We need to understand this is ancient. The social engineers, the mindset that they hold, it's a religion, but it's ancient as well, and it is it's like a virus. So instead of creating something new, it wants to latch on and feed and distort. It's all about distorting perception of reality, inverting what is nature, truth. And this has taken many shapes and forms throughout the millennia. And this is where we get, the cultural religions from. This is kind of their output, their rhetoric. So every cultural religion, it stems from the animist pagan worldview. So it was a taking and then a twisting of, and in many cases, there was violations and force and genocide involved, especially with something like Christianity and Islam and Judaism. We're still seeing that. This is still an active state of mind and an active state of duress and violation. So, of course, just like with anything, knowledge is the potential of empowerment, and this is what we need to do. So, shout out to the viewers that can actually truly listen to these types of episodes without their generational programming and conditioning take hold. Because there's a lot of people, especially right now, it's extremely active, that the cultural religious programming is coming out people get uncomfortable and they start squirming and they get reactive and they're not even receptive to information.
Right.
So, yep.
That's very true. Like I've learned that with these discussions, like there is certain discussions, Will and Logan, that they really trigger people, and religion is a big one. And I find that too, is that they're not even, like, most people are not even open to the discussion. I'm open to any discussion. Even if I don't know a lot about it, I'm still willing to sit and listen. And I really want to listen if I don't know a lot, and learn and have questions. And I'm very open to it. But a lot of people aren't. It was kind of shocking to me in a way, because I've always been that way. And a lot of people aren't, especially with religion, and I found politics. Those are the two that I'm just like, wow, people are so reactive and they just shut down. They won't even listen. And I'm just like, geez, you think you'd want to at least listen to form an opinion, or have, more information to me is always better, the way I see it.
Yeah,
Definitely.
so many great points being made right off the bat. I love this. I love what you said, Will, about the human, or the virus, plaguing, and it's stemming back to the kind of the Christian mindset. This idea popped into my head when you said that viruses don't create, they replicate.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
They have no natural creativity. They just latch on, like you said, and exploit and kind of corrupt that. But the other thing too that I wanted to mention was the attachment that people have to these traditions. We touched on this a little bit in the last one. I believe it was the Valentine's Day one, where it's like, it's no wonder people get so upset and triggered, because this is something that goes all the way back in their life to childhood, when they were in their formative years. They're the most impressionable, and they have these extremely deep, visceral ties to the memories and the traditions and the feelings around that it becomes so ingrained in people. And it's like, if you say something challenging these traditions, it's like you might as well be, slapping their childhood memories right in the face. You know what I mean?
Great point.
And I think it's by design. There's always these colors and sounds and smells and feelings that are attached to these memories and these experiences. I think that's done very intentionally to bury those roots deep down into the psyche and make them way harder to pull out.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. I'm just thinking about what you're saying, Logan, and I think of any of these holidays, and you're extreme. You're so right. I think you're nailed it 100%. Is that there's these emotions attached to it, and even because we're going to be talking about Easter, I think back when I was younger. That Easter, when I was a little kid, and I'm sure a lot of the listeners, was a big thing at least in my house. It was like my mom and dad made a big production out of it. Like the Easter bunny was coming, and they would hide stuff all over the house, and I would wake up and go hunt for it and stuff like that. And those memories come back as soon as I was thinking about this whole topic that we were going to be covering. That's where my mind went to. That it was these memories is right where my memory went to when I thought about Easter.
Exactly.
I'm like, oh my God, all these great things when I was a kid, and we were making eggs with my mom, and it's really clever what they're doing. To me, that's why I respect for these social engineers. They're so tuned into the psyche of the mind and how we react to things. That's why I think we're up against something very sinister.
Yeah, and intelligent.
Oh,
and look, it's important to keep in mind, you can still have those memories and they can still mean something to you. This doesn't have to negate that completely, but we have to always be willing to respect, right? To take a look again. That's what that word means. To look again at the things that we believe, the things that we kind of assume as truth or take for granted as just, that's how it is. That's just what we do, and I mean, you can even have the knowledge of where things came from and still choose to participate if you want to. That's the beauty of awareness and free will. The awareness creates the choice. You can change or you can continue, but at least you understand what it is you're celebrating, where it came from, and then make that decision from a place of gnosis and awareness, instead of just accepting just kind of blindly the status quo.
Right. Great points. What do you think? Well, I think this is so cool what we're diving into here. I'm really going to enjoy this. And do you have was your family like that with the whole hiding of the eggs and that, or am I one of the weird ones?
No, my parents have, I was raised obviously on a ranch of, 10 acres, very close to nature. And my parents were not religious at all. Even though my dad, he went to Catholic school for a little bit. My birth mom, in her later years, all the way to death, she considered herself a Christian, but was very open-minded. One of my biggest actually supporters was her when I was coming into my journey of higher awareness. But growing up, these holidays were literally just a reason to get together and mess around on the ranch.
Oh, cool.
So
Awesome.
it was a gathering time, and that's strictly what it was. And that was usually for all holidays, an excuse to get together.
That's awesome in a way. Like, I mean, and I think that's cool. Like, if you can get together with family, and I think that brings people together is in that kind of way is amazing to me. And I think we need more of that now, probably a lot more than we have.
Yeah. I think it's great. I mean, the gatherings, the celebrations are excellent. I use, reverent, but again, there's these layers of kind of illusion and delusion that are over these time periods. So, for you to have that gnosis means you understand where your currency, your energy is being invested into. So this is something that the social engineers do, especially in this time period, is one of the biggest. They're manipulating people's energy to go a certain direction for them to unconsciously invest into an endeavor, right? That's not paying so-called dividends back. So it's just paying division, not dividend. So having that awareness and understanding that these quote unquote holy days are actually rooted in nature, in objective reality, in truth, in the cycles of nature, in energy and consciousness, and are very personal to all life as well. So having that, getting down to that root for me, and Logan agrees, I'm sure, that's true spirituality. Yep. It's all about relationship, your relationship to yourself, to truth, to moral principles, to nature, and to reality, and how we interact during this experience,
100%.
Journey.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, go ahead. If you want to add in, Logan, go ahead. Just chime right in, man. I'm good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for this. My mind is already trying to go 100 different directions.
Me too.
I'm trying to kind of keep it on a leash and make sure that we sort of try to go through this in a more structured fashion. So,
I agree. Yeah, I have so many questions, but maybe we should get to let's bring it right back to the origins. I think that's the best place. Let's build this foundation. Yeah. Let's get back to the origins of Easter. Like skip the colored eggs, the chocolate, the bunnies, all of this stuff. I want to get right to the root of where this celebration comes from. That's where I want to start.
Yeah, I can kick things off with that.
Awesome.
Sweet. Yeah, so I mean, the most simple, direct thing that I think can encapsulate what the true meaning of the origins of this holiday is a celebration of the vernal equinox, right? The rebirth of the sun, the return of spring, and moving out of winter into spring. The sun is reborn and moving back into the northern hemisphere, and the days are getting longer and all this kind of thing, right? Mm-hmm. And so, like any good pagan, the people, especially of European descent, this is really where this particular thing came out of directly. But I'm sure that this is obviously something that was celebrated and recognized all over the world. But the thing to keep in mind is the seasonality of the different regions of Earth. So even within Europe, the people in Southern Europe were celebrate or worth having this celebration sooner than, say, Scandinavian people, because spring came earlier than,
Mm-hmm.
So, that's the kind of the base layer of it. And then you have all these different goddesses and holidays that were associated with those that were, traditional of these different people and their cultures. So that's where the syncretism comes in, that we kind of revisit again and again on these episodes of the syncretism of truth. When something's based in nature, it's universal, and you might have a different name for it than me, and maybe even a slightly different interpretation of it, but we're talking about the same thing because it is inherent to the shared reality and the natural forces that we are all experiencing as human beings. So,
very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. It always comes down to nature, which is really amazing. That's what I love. It always seems to have the roots. It comes from nature, and that's what I really connect with. And before I get your thoughts on it, Will, I there is hope, because my neighbor, I was talking to my neighbor Terry, who's listening in right now. He's beside me, and I was telling him what we're going to be diving into tonight, and he broke down basically what you said, Logan. Like he like, as soon as I said like the origins of Easter, he basically was saying what you were saying. He was like, oh, it has to do with the spring and the seasons, and like basically what you said. I was like, okay, so there is people out there that have some knowledge. It was really cool that he broke it down like that and had at least understanding of where it came from, and that's really cool.
I think people even have kind of an intuitive knowing, even if they haven't like directly looked into it. I think people just kind of have a general, almost instinctual or intuitive understanding of it. And so to those people, I think this information should resonate, because it's kind of confirming what they already sort of know, but then giving them a little bit more actual information behind that, and hopefully some useful mindsets and perspectives about it as well.
Right. Yeah. It's true. It does resonate. At least for me. I mean, it definitely does. You can feel things, and I definitely can. I'm definitely more in tune than I was even 5 years ago, to the nature, like I don't know how to word it, like the rhythm of the earth, I guess. Like I don't know, for lack of better terminology, that's what I feel things now, and I can feel these changes, and you can feel it coming, and you kind of get into sync with it, like you kind of get into the ebb and flow of it, which is how I describe it. So it's very interesting. When you start doing this work, you start to come back to it and connect with it again, because I think they do their best to keep us so separated from nature. And that's what I notice now, is that people are so disconnected from nature. I always say they're like soul sick. That's the only phrase that ever resonates with me when I say it, is that society's soul sick, and I think it's this disconnect. So I'm going off on a tangent. I'm sorry. Will, want to get your thoughts on what Logan was saying and what we're talking about, the origins here.
Yeah, and Rick, that's a great word, disconnect. I use that often, because that's exactly what it is. It's really not about learning something new. It's more about remembering. So we have been disconnected, and we need to remember or relearn this information that's, kind of inherent in reality. I mean, if you think about our ancient ancestors, as long as men drew breath, they looked up at the heavens, the stars. They gave respect and celebration to the sun and the moon, which you could look at as the masculine and the feminine, and the earth as well, right? The mother, the great mother that sustains all life. So these are commonalities that have always existed in some form or fashion, and celebrations and rituals have changed throughout the years. Something to kind of note that we're going to talk about the origins of Easter, but it's directly related to the spring equinox, where this is the sun moving from winter into spring. So the equinox means equal day and night. So the sun's at the 0 degrees equator and rising. So it's leaving Pisces and going into Aries. And many ancient cultures celebrated the spring equinox this time. I mean, the ancient Egyptians had, and again, I could be pronunciating this wrong. It was Sham el Nassim, which was the beginning, celebration for the beginning of spring. The Greeks had a festival of Dionysia, and the Romans had their holiday as well. The Persians had one, which actually the Persians celebrated New Year's at the spring equinox. I personally consider the New Year to be the spring equinox, the natural New Year. Some people disagree, and they say it's in winter, when the sun breaks that degree, and the 23.5 degree tropic, and then is moving from that. So rising creates a cycle. I think life to life, death, life. That's a full cycle in my book.
Yes. I want to add to that, dude.
Go for it.
You're on point with this. This is what is directly telling you whether you're celebrating a death cult or a practice of life, right?
Yep.
So the Christian perspective on the Christmas holiday, followed directly by New Year, is putting all the emphasis on death, the celebration of they talk about, well, he was only dead 3 days, but it's all about, the focus is on the death, not about the rebirth necessarily. And then, even seasonally, it's the death of the sun, right? And life begins at life, right? When you're born, you don't start dead, and then your life begins when you're alive, when you become alive. And that's what spring is all about, when life returns to nature. So I think, it's a very interesting way to look at that.
It really is.
Yeah, actually, to add to that, Logan, another thing is, where, Christ was dead for 3 days, and that's he dies on the cross. That 3 days is the 3 houses. So you can look at it as the 3-month period to the spring equinox, where he is risen again, right? Easter.
That's interesting, because it's 3 suns is 3 days, and then 3 moons is 3 months or moons. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
The correspondence aspect there. Yeah.
Yeah, and Easter is always, the sun day,
Yes.
After the first moon in the lunar month.
Right.
So, same with Passover is during that time as well. So there's so many correlations that go with this, and we can go on and on. It's absolutely fascinating.
I can add a little bit to that right away, as well as you were saying, there's all these different iterations for basically the same thing, even though they might not have been exactly at the same time. But you have, I think, one of the oldest of these fertility goddess was Ishtar, or Inanna, of the Sumerian culture. And then you have Ostra, or Eostra, which was the Anglo-Saxon spring goddess. And then you had the May Queen, which was English and Celtic, celebrating May Day. The Slavs, the Greeks, and then, of course, the Norse. So they had Sigurblot, which means literally victory, ritual or sacrificial offering. So Sigur means victory or success, and blot is the Germanic word for a sacrifice or offering. And then, they had Oster, Ostra, and Ostara. Those were different variations of the same spring goddess as well, who was the bringer of light after winter, and happened to often be depicted as a hare or a rabbit. And what I wanted to point out, though, here is East, or Ost, is the Germanic word for east. So you have Ostara, Ostra, and Easter. So there's the correspondence yet again of the East in many traditions symbolizes renewal, rebirth, and the start of a new day. But remember, there's that microcosmic correspondence of the days and the months and the seasons. It's all the same thing, just how big of a cycle you're talking about. So the East representing a new day because the sun rises in the East. It's the return of light, which is the same as what's being represented with this spring, the vernal equinox.
Yep.
Wow, that's fascinating.
The season of life. You know, we consider in our modern age that there's 4 seasons. And the ancients absolutely, so it looked at as 2 seasons, the season of life and the season of death. Obviously, the season of death is, fall and winter.
Mm-hmm.
And then the season of life is spring and summer. And this can be easily observed, right? When you look at the season of life and you have the beginning of spring, the snow has melted, the plant life is starting to bloom. The soil is fertile to plant seeds. The animals are coming out and mating, etc. There's more light.
Yeah.
And this is where you grow your crops, then you harvest in the summer, and then you're stockpiling and preparing for the season of death for fall and winter. So, in this modern age, it's something that can be looked over just because we have modern technology. I mean, winter can just be another day. It just might rain or snow, but still, you're going to work, you're going to school. We're not as affected as our ancestors were during these time periods where everything, survival, life, depended on the knowledge of nature, the season of life, and the
you had to know it, or you died. You're so right. And so I would think that what we're speaking about, Easter, spring, and all that, this must have been the most important time of year for all around the world at this time of year, because it would dictate your whole year, right? Like I understand how important that this time of year is, this season is.
The seeds you're planting, the seeds you're planting now, and this is
so important.
This is both literally, it's for agriculture, and you remember, like, before the modern age and the industrial era and all of these kind of things, people, especially animistic, pagan people, their whole life revolved around agriculture. It was both their way of surviving and their actual vocation for the most part. There were other people, but most people were farmers, at least to some capacity. And because, it was a group effort, and so that's why all of their big holidays were their whole lives were centered around the cycles of agriculture for in every aspect, but also always remembering to look at it in the correspondence levels of, mental and spiritual. So the thoughts that you're thinking, the information that you're taking in, the skills that you're learning right now, and the things that you might be building in life, right? Getting ready to start a new business or launch some new program or whatever it may be, those are planting seeds as well. So now is the time where the ether is fertile. The soil of reality is ripe for planting and gestating into something very productive. You don't want to plant when it's fall, right? You're not gonna, you got to get any return on your investment. So it's, we've talked about this as we've talked about, Halloween, and it's kind of, that's the other end. We're kind of at the other end of the spear now. Of, like, instead of harvest, now is the time to plant. We just made it through winter. We took the time to be still, to look within, to kind of rest and digest and contemplate and think about what you have learned and what you want for the next cycle. And now it's time to start taking action, because again, it's fertile grounds. What you're going to do now is going to have the max return by taking action. And that's what nature does. Nature rewards actions.
That's amazing. Like, that is so, like, I'm really, that's so cool what you're saying. And I'm thinking about what you're saying, Logan, about this moment. What stuck out to me is a moment of rest. And I think about how the world is now and how people are now. There's no rest. Like, people are just, who has time, let's be honest, who really in time, the way that the society is structured now, who has time to sit back and just describe what you did, rest, contemplate, think things over, take that time. You've done the work during the spring and the summer, and now you have this moment of rest, which I think is so important. It's as important as the other part, the other aspect of it. But people have lost it. We've been disconnected from so much, is what I'm trying to say, and rest is one of them. I we're being bombarded. I don't think people have a moment to even rest at all. And I just like, so I'm kind of going off again, but this is where my mind's going as you guys are talking. It's like, wow, like people just don't have time to even sit and do any self-reflection anymore. And then you lose something huge, I think, that, our ancient, our ancestors had. It was so much more in tune with the rhythm.
Integrated and synchronized with the rhythms of nature. That's what it's all about. And that is what has definitely been lost in modern society.
That's good. Not good.
Something that's profound is that we can observe and learn from the macrocosm. So, the larger bodies of nature, the stars, the moon, the sun, and it all correlates to the self, to the individual, meaning that the sun itself, the sun, is the soul of the world, right? And it's also, its whole journey, the yearly journey, that's what it is. It's an adventure. It's a journey. It's a hero's journey going through the constellations, going through death, and then coming back around and coming out of the tomb of winter and being, and rising again to life. It's the same thing as an individual soul, the journey that we are on. We are born, we are here for self-discovery, to learn, to grow and evolve our soul. And then we die, but obviously that does not end, right? Mm-hmm. It is transmuted and transferred again. So winter being the time period of regeneration and internal aspects, just as the sun goes through the winter, the darkness, right? And then it comes out. Like, this is what the spring is all about. It's all about, it's just like a day, right? A year is just like a day for the individual. You are awake, you're doing things during the day, and then what? You go home, you lay down, and you go to sleep. To what? To regenerate. Yep. Then you wake up again. Bam, that's spring.
It's the fractal nature of reality. It's the Russian doll. Everything just a smaller or bigger iteration of everything is the same in a different way.
Exactly.
With that. Yeah.
Yeah. Correspondence, as above, so below, as within, so without. And the ancients knew this. They were extremely versed in this gnosis. And of course, how do you convey this knowledge to the children, and then so it's passed down through generations and generations. Stories. Yep. Exactly. Everything was oral tradition. This is why we can see even the cultural religions today. There's the anthropomorphic. Nature is given human characteristics. This is so it's relatable, and it gives it a story, and it's easy to remember. It's easy to pass down. And yeah, but of course, when you write things down and you're passing knowledge that way, it can be easily misinterpreted and manipulated as well.
For sure. No, wow.
So this is the difference of truly understanding, like, the topics that we're talking about and seeing it in your life, in reality, versus just reading it and taking it for face value or page value as you read it. And this is the problem with all of the cultural religions, or any of the religions, right? This is the exoteric versus the esoteric. You're taking it for face value, and this is what most people know, or you actually understand the metaphors, the allegories, and the message that is concealed within there, the reason.
Right. Wow, you're so right. I'm thinking about that too. That's how things are passed down. You're right. Stories and written down. And I've talked extensively about how things, if they're written down, can be manipulated and changed over time. And I get into some good discussions, I should say, about that one too, which is kind of fascinating. That people don't even think that in certain cases that words they stay true all the way through history. And I'm like, I don't think so.
It's easy to lie when you write something down.
Yeah,
right. It's easy to lie when you type something on social media. It's a lot harder to lie when you're standing face to face to someone.
Right. You're right. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And I'm definitely keeping track on time because I know I want to get in the second hour, like this whole season of sacrifice, and because I want to cover both aspects, the origins and then what it's been turned into and what it means to the dark, the dark occultists. Because as we were saying at the beginning, this is what they do. They take something that's pure and they infect it is a great way. Like it's like this parasitic virus or something that they put into things and twist it. And so, but what I wanted to ask, because I did have a friend ask me this and they wanted me to ask. Now we're talking about spring, and we all know it in the spring there was a lot of animal sacrificing going on and stuff like that. They wanted me to ask what was the reason for this. Like that was their question.
Yeah, that's a good one. Well, we have to understand that from our ancestor perspective, that blood itself, just like Logan talked about earlier with nature, there's a give and a receive, right? So there's this relationship of giving and receiving. And in the ancient times, yes, there were animal sacrifices. This was an offering. This was a sacrifice, which the word sacrifice, all it means is to offer something sacred. So, and when you think about the human body itself and the energy that flows through us, this correlates to the blood itself, right? The heart space, the generator of energy. And, the heart has the largest magnetic field as well in the body, larger than the brain itself. It is the pump, and it pumps the blood, the inner chi, the energy through our blood. So, the ancients considered blood itself as being sacred, containing the energy of something. So this was a great life force energy, and this was a great offering. So yes, they would do animal sacrifices, and they would put the blood into the earth itself as an offering, trying to influence the energies, giving to receive.
Yeah, great. Well said. And I'd like to add to that. First of all, blood sacrifices were not the only type of sacrifice. They were probably the highest because they did respect life, and it meant something. This wasn't trivial. But it was also about the value of animals that they had. Like animals were life in and of themselves. To be able to have like livestock, for example, the very first rune is Fehu, which is where the concept of money or the fee comes from. The Germanic people did not have money. They had and they traded cattle like currency. This is where the word fee comes from, is Fehu. Cool. And so that will give you an insight into the value that they had of their animals. So it's not about just killing the animal. It's about giving something, offering something to the gods or the spirits of nature, something that's valuable to them. It's showing I'm willing to give up something that's valuable to me to receive something valuable from you. So it could have been an animal. It could have been grains or mead or alcohol or some other kind of
seeds. I would think seeds is a big one. Seeds to me is it would be important for growing to have a abundance of seeds.
Yeah, just anything that was valuable to them, jewelry, right? Something a handcrafted or a sword or something like that. Like these were the things that they would sacrifice. It wasn't always just animals, but animals were typically reserved for the most sacred of rituals and ceremonies, like these type of holidays that we're talking about. So that is when they would offer animal sacrifices, because it's like if we don't get our planting season right, we're all going to die. So this is really important. So they wanted to bring the highest level of magic and the highest caliber of sacrifice to ensure that they would get good favor from the gods, basically.
Wow, that makes so much sense, Logan, that what you're saying, like, because I think, and it's good that you kind of bring this up, because I think that's a really important point when we're talking about the animal sacrifice, and I think you nailed it when you said this, is that, these animals were valuable. Like back in these times, animals were probably not cheap, not easy to come by, and they were so important. So I get it. It makes total sense the way you break it down. Is that, I think people just think they were just slaughtering animals just for the heck of it, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But when you put the value behind it of what these animals were worth, this was so, like you said, valuable, because I think it was probably, like I said, not cheap to have animals. And the more that you had, I think people can figure what I'm saying is that, they were this value. So I get that. And it makes total sense.
It was done with great respect and reverence.
Right.
It's very contrary to this idea of just these like violent savages, and that the modern religious or academic people want to portray the ancient or pagan people as.
Right. Yeah, that's important. I think that people don't realize what you said. I think that's really breaks it down. It kind of ties into what I was watching the movie Dances with Wolves last night, and I love that movie just because for Native Americans, the connection to nature, I've always found that fascinating, that they were so in tune with nature. And that's kind of like part of the movie was that they were, I think everybody's seen the movie, but he wanted to marry the one woman, and he had to give offerings. So what was he offering? He was offering horses, offering like jewelry, everything that you said. This was their currency. And right. So like the more ponies, one native elder is like, you're going to need a lot of ponies to get, the blessing to marry this woman. So you had to keep bringing ponies to the chief kind of thing. And I'm like, so it just makes sense what you're saying, that this was their form of currency, and animals would be one of the highest.
Yeah. Germanic people didn't care for money. Even when Romans and things would offer them, coins or some jeweled goblet or something, they would be like, oh, that's shiny, and they just put it on the shelf, and they just go right back to using what's practical, right? They were very, very practical people.
Well, yeah, that brings up a good point of what is intrinsic value,
right?
What is real intrinsic value, which intrinsic means of nature, from nature, and it can be used, right? So that's something to take into consideration. Also, I want to say something about the sacrifice. It's and people that have cultural religious conditioning and backgrounds, they kind of want to put what we're saying in a certain box, like we are advocating for animal sacrifice as we're talking about that, and we're not doing that. We're educating. We're talking about what the ancestors.
What was their mindset?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. What was their mindset and the science behind it? And this is important for when we get into the second hour, when we talk about, the season of sacrifice and the social engineers, because they very much, like I said earlier, in the old ways, the old religion, they very much believe in bloodletting and using blood as a propagator for energy. But every single person that exists now sacrifices every day of their life. Sacrifice is giving up something sacred. And what is more sacred than your energy itself?
Mm-hmm.
So when we think about our ancestors, and they valued animals, they valued blood itself. That might not apply today. We have a greater awareness and understanding that actual energy and what we do to operate in reality has great value. Our time and our attention.
That's so powerful. You're right. And I've been saying that a lot more too, Will. I've been saying that a lot more, like lately, more than I used to, is that you when you do realize it, like exactly what you said, what are the two things that are so valuable? I'm like, for each person, what is so valuable? And you're right, your energy, and for me, it's time, because it's so limited. Like, we're not here very long. So I just think of how many
spiritual currencies.
It is. It really is. And how many people waste their energy and time on nonsense. And I just think, like, if they really sat down and thought about what we're saying, they would maybe direct their energy to something more productive, more positive, more healing. I just really it discourages me sometimes when I see the energy people pour into certain things.
Yeah, and to add to that real quick too, because I know we're about to go to break. But like Will said, everyone is doing it. The question is, are you conscious of it?
Right.
And are you doing it with true discernment and wisdom? It's a lot like magic. Everyone's practicing in magic, whether they know it or not, but the ones that don't know it, they probably suck at it. And they're either not able to manifest what they want, or their magic's being hijacked and they're manifesting for someone else who is hacking into their creative power. And in that same way, the sacrifice is being hijacked. So people who don't understand the value of sacrifice, they're going through life trying to either do the very bare minimum, and they're entitled little children who are expecting to win the lottery or get some kind of, great reward for not putting in any kind of work, or they're sacrificing all of their true spiritual currencies towards things that don't actually bring them any kind of ROI and are serving someone else that they probably don't know even exists, and they're just being leashed the hell out by some kind of social engineer or dark magician of some kind.
Right. That's going to be a great way to wrap up this hour, Logan, and bring in the second hour after this break, guys. And maybe during this break, think about what we said and take just a few minutes to think to yourself, where's your energy being directed to? Like, where's your energy going, and what are you sacrificing energy-wise? And where's it, like, I just keep thinking that, where's your energy being diverted to? I think that's a great way to end the first hour. And please stick around, guys, because we will have Will Keller and Logan Hart back second hour in like 3 or 4 minutes right after break. We're going to be getting into the origins of Easter and the season of sacrifice. Stick around, guys. Welcome back, everybody. It is Crypt Rick's I've Been Thinking, and we are in the second hour. It was an amazing first hour. I'm glad you guys stuck around. I have two incredible guests on, Will Keller, Logan Hart. We're continuing the series where we break down the origins of holidays that we all recognize, we all know. We've already done Halloween, we've done Valentine's Day, and now, of course, we're going to be we're talking about Easter. And the first hour was amazing. We really got into the origins and where it all started. But the second hour, I would love for you guys, wherever you guys want to start this, because I do know, as we were saying in the first hour, guys, that things get corrupted and twisted. And I definitely know that is what has been going on, and we can get into the season of sacrifice. So wherever you want to, maybe Will, if you want to start it off, where do you want to take this? But I definitely want to get into this whole season of sacrifice because, we talked about the good origins of it, but what does it become is what I'd like to get into for this hour.
Before we get into that, do you think we could just briefly get into the Easter egg part? Because we haven't really got to that yet.
Oh, yeah, my neighbor was, it's funny you said that, Logan, because he broke it down. I want to see if he's right, because he broke down, he goes, where did Easter eggs come from? And I was like, I don't know. And so it's going to be interesting if he was right.
Logan, go ahead, jump it off, brother.
Sure. Gladly. So generally speaking, the egg is associated in ancient traditions with rebirth, renewal, fertility, right? And then as I mentioned before, the Ostara goddess was often depicted as a hare, and also in Germanic mythology as well. The goddess was healing a wounded bird before turning it into a rabbit. And then the rabbit was still partially a bird. It showed its gratitude by laying eggs as gifts. So that's kind of like the mythological origins of, between, the connecting the Germanic mythos with this idea of the rabbit and laying eggs or offering eggs as gifts, right? So it's kind of a weird story. And then in ancient Egypt, the egg was found to symbolize the sun, going back to Ishtar as well, who is one and the same with the Sumerian Inanna. And so there's, as we've talked about before, there's that crossover, multicultural, we could say, origins there. And then just briefly, and this is just according to history, which we all know about history and the potential fallacy of those who have been the writers of history. But according to history, In the 1200s, King Edward decorated eggs and handed them out as gifts. So this was kind of, I'm painting the picture of the development of this idea into the modern tradition.
Okay.
It went from the bird turning to a rabbit and laying eggs as gifts. And then we take that, and then you've got the king decorating eggs, handing them out as gifts. And then in the 1500s, Martin Luther allegedly hosted the very first Easter egg hunt for his congregation. So that's kind of the stepwise progression into the modern day thing, which, and I wanted to just throw out there, this is hilarious that this is a theme on every single one of these that we've done so far, where we go from something extremely deep and rich and meaningful to basically a consumerist tradition of buying plastic and sugar.
Yep. We're going to have a break. Yep, you're right.
Yeah, and I even kind of thought of that, of like the cheapening of that via correspondence. So you've got plastic decor and just cheap trash to decorate out externally, right? And then you're taking nutrient void, toxic candy internally into your body. So it's just poison all around. You know, and of course, what does plastic do? Poisons the earth. The whole, you know, the origin of venerating earth and its natural cycles into something that's literally poisoning the earth and ourselves. So
right.
How's that for irony?
That's what I mean. They it's like you guys both said at the first hour. This is what they do. They poison anything that's pure, and that's so it gets me so angry. Is like you broke that down perfect, Logan. Like, you look at the origins and how amazing and it's such an amazing story in history of what you guys talked about the first hour. Like, I would have loved somebody to break this down to me as a young kid, more than the newer version that you just broke down, which is, to me, it's laughable now to see where it started to what it's become. I agree with you. Like, there's nothing resembling. It's all consumerism now. They've just that's all they focus on. And you're right. That is the theme of all of these shows. Is that what have they done? They've twisted it into something it was never meant to be, and then they commercialize it, and people lose total connection with where it even came from. I wonder how many people even know what we're speaking about, the origins of these. You know,
it's become so meaningless, right?
Right.
There is no education in the wisdom that these traditions are supposed to be teaching. It's been reduced to a performative, ritual, basically, where there's no meaning behind it, but people are still going through the motions. They do the Easter egg hunts. They go to Easter Sunday, and they pimp out. Like, I've always noticed that, like, people that don't even go to church, they buy these super nice fancy suits and shiny shoes, and they're all pimped out just so they can go kind of flex on people at Easter Sunday at church.
Yep. Wow. I want you to weigh on this, Will. This is some good stuff.
Absolutely, yeah. You're nailing it. I find it interesting. Well, first, the egg itself as a symbol and what it represents. It's actually, it's one of the most powerful symbols, right? The egg also represents the universe, the cosmic egg, right? Where the egg itself is the universe, and in the middle you have the yolk, the golden sun, with the living water around it, right? Encapsulating it, which can also represent the ether as well. The ether's kind of considered like a plasma.
Soul.
Yep, exactly. And the soul. Yep, the sun, the soul. So, and also for the individual, right? It's feminine. You can look at it as the womb, with the soul inside the womb, the child.
Fire and water.
Yep, fire and water, exactly. And of course, when an egg cracks from the inside, obviously it's life. Cracks from the outside, it's death. So the materialism that's involved in all of these holidays, right? Especially Easter, and the inversion of it. There's also the polarization. I find it interesting that almost every holiday, there's an invisible delusion that is attached to it, right? With Easter, it's the Easter bunny is gonna, if you're good, is gonna, give you a basket of candy or gifts or something like that. Same with Christmas. St. Patrick's Day as well, right? The invisible leprechaun leaves candy and coins and that kind of stuff. So it almost kind of promoting the savior effect as well, the polarization. On one end, you're believing in fantasy that is not real, and then when you find that out, that could absolutely as a young kid or a teenager can throw you into the opposite polarity of it's all BS and none of it's real, and could be the seed that is planted for either you to be an extreme religionist or an extreme atheist. Right? They don't want people on the middle path of gnosis, of knowledge. That's what they don't want. They want people polarized. So I was just kind of relating that to children and the upbringing and the programming that's attached to it as well. For a lot of kids, when they find out the Easter Bunny isn't real, right? It's in some kids, it creates a trauma response, right? To have this belief shattered without explanation or whatever. So it's it could definitely do some damage.
That's a good question. Well, I don't mean to cut you off, but I
go for it.
want to ask you this, and it's kind of, I don't want to sidevert too much, but because you brought up the Easter Bunny now, when there is a point where children find out that Santa Claus isn't real, leprechaun, like you name it, Easter Bunny, all of this stuff. Because you're a parent, and I'm really curious about this, do you think that these traditions that, as we're speaking of, like Santa Claus, Easter Bunny, do you think they do more damage than good, or is there a healthy way to do this?
Well, I think there's absolutely a healthy way to do it. And that's kind of, I think, our goal when we do these episodes is to point parents in the right direction of knowledge and understanding, so they can apply that in the parental relationship with their children. For instance, my daughter, she likes these holidays. It's more of a fun thing to mess around with, but I absolutely explain to her and educate her on what these days are. I mean, she doesn't believe there's someone coming down the chimney. The chimney. She doesn't believe there's a rabbit, going to people's houses and leaving candy and that kind of stuff. And not every holiday, but for instance, the equinox, we do a celebration. And we're outside all day. We're going on a hike. And we're grateful. Our whole presence in the day is venerating and grateful for this time of the season.
That's incredible. Well, I'm glad you answered that, because I was just curious. The only thing I want to add to you about before we get back in Easter is that the one thing tradition that is weird to me is the tooth fairy thing. I always think, like, what twisted? Where did this come? I don't even know where this came from, but it is messed up, man. That you leave teeth under your pillow and somebody comes and gives you money. That would creep me out, man. I'm like, some weird person thought this thing up. To me, it's just a weird one. But anyways, the tooth fairies always freak me out. The whole story.
Yeah, it just goes to show the literalist mindset of the West and of Christian cultures. They do the same thing with interpreting the Bible and Jesus and all these things. They take it very literally, and so it's like, well, yeah, their children are taught to believe literally that Santa Claus is real, the Easter Bunny is real, and then it becomes a traumatic experience when they find out it's not. Instead of teaching them what it might represent. And like you said, Will, you can choose to celebrate it as long as you have understanding of it, and then you don't lie to the kids. That's the part that's messed up.
Yeah.
Just tell them it's make-believe and it's just for fun, and that's perfectly fine. And just don't lie to them and let them actually believe that it's literally true, and then they'll have that traumatic experience. But
exactly.
Circling back to the egg as well, I love that you brought up the cosmic egg, because that is one of the most important aspects to understand. Like it's a deeply occulted symbol that is extremely profound and important. It is the seed or egg of life. Like the egg and the seed are the same thing. It's just of the plant and the animal
kingdom, because it's a round shape, right? That's feminine, that contains all the potentiality of what that being can grow into being, right? But then it's the environment, the nurture, the care that thing receives that determines how it turns out, how healthy and strong it is, and all these kind of things, right? So all of potentiality is contained within that seed or within that egg, and then it's up to the gestation and the care that it receives that will determine the actual outcome playing out. And that is circling right back down to, what is this tradition all about? Planting seeds now, right? The seed is the egg that will hatch and grow into your creative output throughout the year, and that you will eventually be able to harvest the benefits of, to reap what you sow, right? This is the season of sowing. It's natural law, cause and effect, right? So you sow now, and then you reap the harvest later.
That's incredible. And that's so powerful what you're saying, Logan. Like, and I hope people really hear what you're saying. And you and Will are both saying that, how it echoes. Like, when you're talking about nature, it always seems to come back to the individual and what's going on inside the individual. And then how,
because we are nature.
Exactly. And that's what people have lost, I think. At least the people a lot of people I observe and talk to, that's the disconnect right there. They've severed that connection, as we spoke about in the first hour. And it seems like this is where we have to kind of rediscover, as Will said. We have to rediscover all of our origins and things that we've forgotten, and then that they purposely have steered us away from. It's really, I keep saying it's so evil what they've done, but genius in the same. Like, I hope people understand what I mean when I say that. Like, you have to respect what they're doing, because they're masters of what they're doing. Just look what they're doing to humanity as a whole.
This kind of struck me just real quick too, of this disconnect with nature that you're talking about, is how most people now, they have one of two mindsets about nature and themselves. They either tend to see nature as perfect and good and whole and wholesome, and humanity as corrupt and vile and evil and wicked and all these things. Or, nature is wild and pure chaos, and humans are what bring order and civility to Earth and all this kind of thing. Those are both dialectics. All of that is contained within nature and ourselves. That's the pure potentiality. It's learning condition versus nature, right? That which can and cannot be changed. Human beings can be good or evil, and nature can both be harsh and nurturing.
You're so right. Yeah, you're right. That's the way I've always looked at nature, Logan. Is it's amazing and beautiful, but it's got its harsh components to it.
Brutal too.
It's very brutal. I know, and I just know by observing the animals out in the yard all summer that nature is very unforgiving. Is the best way I look at it. Like, that's what I think of when I see an animal that's struggling, or nature has its way, and you're right. It's beautiful. I see beauty around me all the time when I went to nature. I try to spend so much time connecting to nature again and being out, just in it. But you do see you're right. There is a brutal part to it. Very much so. And it echoes in people. I think people are the same, like you said. People have both elements in them. That's the dance that I think people have to, that's what we're trying to balance, is a good way to put it.
Yep, absolutely.
Interesting. Wow. What do you think, Will? I'm going to get your thoughts here, because I know when I just look at the time, and I wish I had another hour. Anytime I talk to you guys, it's like, yeah, I wish I had another hour, because we just started to get the good stuff at the last hour, it seems.
Good thing we didn't try to do St. Patty's Day.
Oh my God, you were right. I thank you for that advice, because I did, guys. I wanted to do St. Patty's Day and Easter, and thank God I said we don't have time for both. So,
yeah, no, for sure. So, I mean, we definitely should get into the season of sacrifice. It's extremely relevant during this time, and it's good. I'll kind of set the stage real quick. It's good to understand what the sun itself actually represents. The sun represents the light of the Creator. It represents knowledge, right? Knowledge of nature, the soul, natural law. So when we talk about the social engineers, right, and how this parasitical cult, they still believe and act on the old ways, the old religion. They are a solar cult, but what they represent the black sun. So it's the inverted light of the sun, right? Not the light of the creator. It's the dark knowledge. So when we look at occultism, and we understand that it is the knowledge of natural law, how reality operates, and how the human being operates, right? This vast critical knowledge, but how it can be used is another story. Someone can use it for light or dark, right? And obviously the social engineers use this for their own advantages, and to give humanity the disadvantages, right? I mean, they've been referred to as the cult of the black sun. Yeah. So during this time period that we've set the stage for the season of sacrifices, it's a fertile time energetically. We're planting the seeds, and we're having those offerings of our intention and our intent to act, and planting those seeds for our energy, so we can put in motion what we will harvest, what we will reap later on. And the energy is high, the energy is fertile, and this is a prime time for psychological operations, false flags, to disrupt the energy and the rhythm of life and the flow in the population, to influence people to give up to sacrifice their own energy for their cause. And of course, this cult, believing in the old ways, they very much believe that this offering needs to be in blood.
Mm-hmm. And planting their seeds, their dark seeds of chaos, ignorance, suffering. This is what they want, because they can use that. They are alchemists in their own ways. And that's what's important, is this is simply the corruption of the polarity principle of nature. Nature is not good or evil. It just is what it is. Yeah. And so these people, they understand that every light has its dark side, and that they can exploit and utilize that negative expression of anything, right? Like, beautiful lovemaking or an act of rape. It's the same action, but there's a light and a dark aspect to it. So just like these holidays, they are tapping into the charge of these events, these natural events, and these energetic seasons. This is that time where, like Will said, the energy is fertile. So, of course, they're going to do the same thing. It's just, what seeds are they planting? Is it for goodness and creation and abundance and prosperity? No, it's the opposite, because that's their agenda, is to perpetuate the lockdown on consciousness and perpetuate the mind control slave matrix, essentially. So that they're doing the same thing as the pagans were. It's just, what are they bringing about? What harvest are they trying to bring out? And what seeds are they planting? Right. And I just want to really, drive this home for the people listening, is that there's all this negative stigma about the Illuminati, and it's all pagan, like witchcraft, and don't demonize that, because all that is nature. They are abusing nature. Don't demonize the nature for how they are abusing it. That is the worst mistake that you could make. Understand where it comes from. Understand the sacred dynamics that they are exploiting, and don't throw out the baby with the bathwater by thinking that just because they're doing it in this way, that everything about it must be evil. You've got to understand this stuff. Don't come from a place of ignorance and just rejecting what you don't understand. That's why we're here on this show talking about this, to show like you can understand what's happening behind it and have that discernment of the light versus the dark aspects and expressions.
That was so, wow. That was so well said for Logan, that I made sure I was like, I'm not even going to make a sound, because that is a sound clip. Like that's a clip. And I was like, I'm not even saying a word until he gets it all out, because that was perfectly said. Well, wow. Amazing. What do you think, Will?
Yep. Yeah. I want to absolutely concur with what Logan said. And I want to put an emphasis on it, because I think this is one of the biggest issues in the quote unquote truth movement. And it's easy to spot by the way they talk about either paganism or occultism, or they say the issue is the Illuminati. When Illuminati itself, it was a group that took that term, which that term by definition means enlightened ones, the ones with the light of knowledge. And they are not that. The social engineers are not the enlightened ones, right? We're talking about the cult of the Black Sun. We're talking about, it's a death cult. It is the opposite of that, but this is what they do. They invert and they pervert and they manipulate. So they take a word like that and then they utilize it. So everyone thinks it's the Illuminati, which they're speaking from ignorance, because just by the definition, they aren't using it right. Same thing with occultism itself. Occultism is just simply knowledge. It all depends how you wield and use that knowledge.
Yes.
So there is a reason why the cultural religions demonize and say, don't look into occultism, don't look into paganism. Paganism is bad. Animism, etc., tarot, all this kind of stuff. They don't want you to have the knowledge, because they want to be the arbiter of their reason and of their knowledge that they're propagating. So that's extremely important, and I want to put the emphasis on it. Same thing with Freemasonry. Everyone, it's the Freemasons. It's the Freemasons. No, you are absolutely, completely ignorant. Freemasonry is knowledge. It's a pathway of gnosis. That's what it is. And it has, just like all of these traditions and all of these pathways, there is light and dark, depending on what you utilize it for. So that's what it is. I don't identify as Freemasons. They don't identify as anything. They don't, it's a cult without the name. What they identify, what they want and what they propagate is control, violence, and death. That's what they are. Yep. They're parasites.
I completely agree with that. And also, I'd love to even add on further here that to understand the nuance of this, first, you need to be able to differentiate the philosophy and the knowledge versus the lodge system or the religious institutions built around that, right? Mm-hmm. So when you say Freemasons, are you talking about anyone who studies Freemasonry and takes in that knowledge and lives by it? Or are you talking about people that are involved, especially at the higher levels of the lodge system? That would be a more accurate idea when you're talking about, it's the who's doing this, who's the problem. First of all, the agenda and its network is far bigger than any single institution. They have people in every aspect of occultism, healthcare, education, media. It's a network that goes all the way, all aspects of human life. Mm-hmm. So even within that, a sphere of occultism, it's not just the Jesuits, it's not just Freemasons, it's not any one of those. But sure, you could say that higher levels of those institutions are they're players on the field of this agenda. That would be accurate. But to demonize the knowledge of occultism because of that is a huge fallacy and a huge mistake. So that's the first thing.
Yep.
The other thing is, see if I can remember the point that I was going to make. It's like you have to understand that knowledge is a tool and it is neutral until it is applied through action. So it would be the exact same as if someone made an observation that, okay, every totalitarian regime in history that has oppressed people and committed genocides, right? They all carried guns. That means guns are bad. Wrong. Huge, huge fallacy, right? It's the abuse of that tool, and actually, if everyone was armed with knowledge and could use it to defend themselves, then these small little gangs that happen to also have guns would be inconsequential, because the majority of people would be armed. And that is the problem, is the majority of people are not armed with knowledge. It's just the same disparity of most people don't carry guns around, and the police and military are the ones with the guns, and they're the ones, lo and behold, that are doing all the actual oppressing of people. It's the exact same thing. It's the perfect analogy, in my opinion. You can't demonize guns because bad people use them. It's the same argument. So what we need is everyone taking in knowledge, arming themselves so that they level the playing field.
Yeah, I can't. I'm so glad you both brought this up. I really am, because it's sometimes I find myself getting into the pretty intense discussions about some of the information I've looked into. Over the years, I've looked into Satanism. I read the Satanic Bible, and I had people really crawl up my ass, to be honest, and give me a hard time, and like, oh my God, it's going to corrupt you. And I'm like you, both of you guys. I'm like, I'm just taking in knowledge. To me, more knowledge is better. It's what I do with the knowledge that I'm taking in is what makes it good or evil. But people have a hard time, like you guys are breaking down, seem to figure this out. Like this is one of the biggest things that really gets to me when I get into these discussions with people, is that they really don't see that knowledge it's not the knowledge that's bad. It's how you apply it and how you use it and internalize it and then express it. And this gets overlooked by people, because I've got, like I said, in some good heated discussions by some of the stuff I've looked into, because they believe that it's going to corrupt you or something. And I'm just like, it's really weird how people think that. But it's fascinating in a way too. But it just drives me crazy when I get into that kind of debate.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. You guys brought up excellent points.
Wow. Yeah.
So, the season of sacrifice, when is that, right? This is a 40-day period from, March 22nd to May 1st, May Day. These, 40 days. So you have, a biblical and occult representation as well. Mm-hmm. Now, the social engineers love to do their blood rituals in this time period, and they favor March 21st, 22nd. They favor that time period because that's kind of like the jumping off point. It's the beginning of the season. So there's and there's a list that we can talk about some of these. Waco, that was April 19th. The Boston fire was March 20th. Keep in mind that 3 days before March 22nd, it's considered in a dark occultism, it's the preparation time. So even in the lodge system, there's rituals that they do. They fast as well. Mm-hmm. There's the preparation to engage the energy, to engage the ritual sacrifice. So they consider those 3 days part of the season as well, right?
Interesting.
So there's all these dates. The Fort Hood shooting, that was April 2nd. The Iraq War, the shock and awe bombings, that was March 19th. Lockdown in the United States, March 22nd, 2020. The Red Lake Senior High School shooting, March 21st. Just recently, this year, right, we had the Moscow Concert Hall mass shooting,
right.
March 22nd.
You're right.
First day of the season, 3 days ago, exactly.
Skull and Bones.
All types of... Yep, that's exactly what I was going to go to. The Skull and Bones, 322. So the Skull and Bones Day is referred to it's the clandestine lodge, dark Freemasonry, the Lodge 322, which is the Order of Skull and Bones, aka the Order of Death, and this is a Yale University based order, right? And it's headquartered at the university, and the location is called the Tomb. So this is reference to
Hiram
Abiff, and it's symbolic for Freemasonry and the third degree tracing board. But, you have like the Bush family, the Clintons, Obama, all these people that are, from the Yale University, this order, 322. It's interesting because you have the head, and then you have the bones, the head representing, thought, the bones representing the body. Yeah, exactly. Intellect. And then the body itself, but you're missing the heart. You're missing emotions, right? Care. Skull and bones. You're missing the care. So it's very fascinating that during this season, there are these events that create this shock and awe, that create this disruption. And it's all about, managing perception and managing energy and focus.
Yeah, I mean, if you actually tallied up a comprehensive list of all of these sort of shootings and massacres and this and that have happened within this window, it would be absolutely staggering. I mean, I don't know if anyone's compiled it completely, but I mean, you could just take a swatch of it, and you've got dozens of names, but I mean, it would be probably in the hundreds at least.
Oh, yeah.
Of all of these major things. And so think about what that is doing. The mind control system is based and run on trauma. It's trauma-based mind control. So again, I ask, what are the seeds that they are planting? They're planting the trauma that they can use to harvest people's energy. That is how they control people. They traumatize them, they demoralize them, then they offer them false programs and constructs that they trauma bond with, that they latch onto as a part of their identity, who they think they are and how they think the world is. That is a projection of their unhealed pain and wounding. That's what they are planting. So it's the beginning of the process. Think about the perversion and just the defilement of the sacredness of what that means. A season that's supposed to be all about life and fertility and growth and just abundance and prosperity. Then you've got these massacres, bloodshed. Like, think about what that is doing. It's just the total perversion of that.
No.
Absolutely.
Will, you just sent me that season of the sacrifice list. I did put that in the chat for everybody to have a look at. And there's a lot of dates here. And I remember, Logan, I did see a documentary a long time ago where somebody broke down a list of the dates and what it's like when these events fall into, and it was like it scrolled for like 3 pages. It was crazy.
Yeah,
when they compile
is just a handful. I mean, that is
there's nothing
compared to the whole totality.
That's just an example, but something going on here with energy manipulation and stuff. This was what me and my neighbor were talking about right before we got live, before we came live on the show here, and we were kind of talking about it. And I don't know how to ask this question to make it make sense in spoken, but we were kind of tossing back, like, are these, like, because he was like, okay, like, there's so many of these events going on during this time of the season, right? Like that we're speaking about, that season of sacrifice. And it's individual people doing it. Now, I guess my question would be, because we were like, is that coincidence? Which I don't think it is, but is the energy being steered to make them do this? Do you know what I mean by my question? Like,
yeah,
how are people
in a state of fear?
Right.
It's to keep people in a state of fear when this time period is a time of focus and action. That's what it is.
Yeah.
I get where you're
create positive change.
Okay, I get what you're saying, because I don't think it's coincidence. Like,
so you
can feel that, like, yeah.
Yeah. confusion, like why is this happening? And most people aren't even putting those pieces together that, like, not only is why is this happening, but why is this happening always at the same time of year as well?
True.
But that speaks to the nature of the enemy that we're dealing with. The people that have the capacity, both morally and influentially, to actually make this happen consistently for years and years and years. I mean, probably hundreds of years, I would say, at least. But this list just goes back a few decades, but it's been going on way longer than that as well. What does that tell you about the organization and the resolve and the follow through of these people? That multi-generational, they're maintaining this tradition.
They're unified and focused.
Exactly. Unified in their agenda and their mindset.
100%, man. 100%. I mean, you can see what's going on right now. Anyone that, claims to be aware about what is going on, there's so much fear propagated during this time, especially this year. Because, today there was a lunar eclipse. You got the solar eclipse on the 8th, and it's all about perception management for behavior control. You can look at the season of sacrifice. It's a perfect representation of you reap what you sow. So what are we sowing right now? Because we are going to reap that in,
That's a great point.
in months to come. And they like Logan said, they want to create the trauma now, and then they're going to get the control later on.
Wow, yeah. And I just kind of giggled there, Will. If you heard me giggle, it's just because when you said the lunar eclipse, Terry, my friend here, he was like, this is a lot to do with the lunar cycle and stuff. And you said it right when he said it to me. So I was just like, God, you guys are on the same page right now.
Yeah.
Well, the social engineers, they have a profound understanding of this information, of this knowledge, and they utilize it. Of nature, exactly. The knowledge of astrology as well. So they understand these natural energies, these cycles, the time when it is fertile to plant a dark seed, and they act on that. So I think the point of having this awareness is not to be in fear. It's to understand, have that awareness, and act itself. I've called this time period the season of sovereignty. I like the season of sacrifice as well, because that question comes up of, well, what are you sacrificing and for what? That's what we need to understand.
Right.
Sacrificing for fear, for them, or for sovereignty, freedom, truth, and morality, and action for change.
Sacrifice your own blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah.
So that you can reap the fruits of your own labors instead of being a slave.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think that's so powerful that I'm so glad that you guys brought up even just talking about sacrifice, because I think as soon as people hear that, they go right immediately to what we were covering earlier. But you make a great point that we're still always sacrificing. I think that gets lost. People don't really think about it that way. But we're always in this constant state of sacrifice. I think that's so powerful. I've never heard that spoken out loud like that before, like that. So I think that's really interesting. Now you got me thinking, I've been thinking about, like I said earlier, about time and our energy. So I'm aware of it, but hearing it spoke out loud like that is kind of interesting. That it makes it really brings it to the forefront. Like when you think about that, you are sacrificing at all times. It just makes you really think. I mean, that's what I like.
Yeah, well,
thinking.
I mean, how do you know if you're under mind control? You observe your triggers.
Absolutely.
So when you say a word like sacrifice, and someone immediately goes to, oh gosh, pagan, animal sacrificing in the woods, this kind of stuff, right?
That's satanic.
That's satanic. Exactly. That's mind control. Right there.
You're right.
Exactly.
Those triggers to me have always been so powerful, especially when you become aware of them, because we all have them, and either you're aware of them or you're not. And when you become aware of them and you start to to know what, like, to be really aware of it. It's you learn a lot about yourself. At least I have, about these triggers, and we all have them. I know we do. And you're right. Like, I can say a word to somebody, and you can see the trigger. There's no thought going into it. It's a reaction, and it's so quick. Like, you'll bring up Satanism, and then there's no thought into, like, really anything about it except what they've heard somewhere, and they jump right to it. And I think people have to, this reaction. And this is how I see humanity in the state we're in now, is this reactive state where there's not really a lot of conscious thought going into anything. They are so masterful. They have people in this reactive fear state. That's the best way I can describe it. This fear reactive state. That's where humanity's at. And I'm so glad that we're trying to show people that and educate people on that and how to get out of that, because that's the key to me, is getting people out of this state.
That is the trauma. That is the evidence for the trauma. Because again, trauma is the fuel, the gasoline in the gas tank of the whole slave matrix system.
Good point.
So, people are basically trying to walk on eggshells now, because everything is so triggering, and people are just ready, just waiting for you to misstep so they can jump down your throat with their virtue signaling and whatever have you. But it's all a projection, because the issue lies within them, right? It's why comedians are getting canceled, because you can't even joke about stuff anymore. People are that reactive. That says a lot about where people are at mentally, that, like, you can't take a joke. That, what does that say? If you like tease somebody about something and then they can't take a joke, it shows there's hurt under there. And it's okay, it's natural, right, when something bad has happened. But if you're not dealing with it, then that's more your problem than anybody else's. And that's the real takeaway here, is that nobody's doing any healing work, any shadow work. They're not even addressing it or acknowledging it, let alone trying to shift out of it. So of course they're going to be so easily controlled and manipulated and predictable.
Absolutely. Great point. And that's what I try to talk about so much, is the work that it always comes back to the work on yourself. The major great discussion I've had, it always comes back to that. That's just the step I truly know people are missing, is the shadow work that we talk about, and getting to know who your authentic true self is. And I think that's the step that most people are missing. To me, it's the most crucial. And I'll keep saying that, because it is that important to me. I know how it changed my life, and I've seen it change other people's lives, but that work has to be done. And that's the problem, is that people won't do the work. And then no wonder they're so easily led by the social engineers. I mean, if you don't have a true knowledge of who you are, then you're so programmable. You are a sheep. You can be led anywhere.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? I hope I said that right, but it rings true to me. That's the work that people need to do, is the inner work, and that's what we're lacking.
You got to call a spade and a sheep a sheep. And what's interesting is, like, even with, like, that may sound insulting, but, like,
it's true.
Well, beyond just the fact that it's true, even more importantly, it's changeable. This goes back to what I was saying earlier of, like, learning the difference between what you can and cannot change. It's like, if someone's ignorant about something and I'm like, you're a dumbass, right? It's okay, because they can sit there and, like, well, wow, I am a dumbass right now, but I can just go and learn about this and change that, and then I won't be a dumbass anymore. That's your personal responsibility and my personal responsibility. It'd be different than being like, oh, you have buck teeth or something, like, like, oh, wow, great. Like, what am I supposed to do with that? It's messed up to make fun of someone for something they can't change, but to call them out of something they can change, it's like, hey, you're an asshole, and it's like, yeah, you're acting like an asshole, but you can choose to change it just like that and start treating people with respect. And then guess what? You're not an asshole anymore.
Great point. The knowledge is there. That more now, I think, than ever in history. We have all this knowledge and wisdom at our fingertips, and we can find it if we care enough to look for it. And that's the problem too, is that, and see, that's another whole show, how they divert people from actually finding this information we're speaking about with all the games and TikTok stuff and all this other stuff to distract people. That's a whole new show, but I get what you're saying, is that this information is out there if you want to look for it, and you can change it. You don't have to be a sheep or anything. This is all changeable. All of this is, but you have to care enough to want to do it.
Exactly. Yep. 100%, man. In the age of information, the first stage is understanding the basics, meaning understanding what it means to have teachability, high teachability, to be receptive, right? It's just like this time period, the season of sacrifice, even the first degree tracing board in Freemasonry, right? When you turn it on its side and it shows the zodiacal journey of the sun, right? You understanding that symbolism is exactly a correspondence to the self. The internal work, you have to make sure that you are ready to receive, to start that trek or climbing Jacob's ladder, right? Towards the sun, towards the soul. So there's so much information, people are just unconsciously, they're not receptive. They're not fertile for knowledge, for gnosis. They're just taking in, short form content, million miles an hour. It's just going in, going out, and they're taking whatever they want. But they're not in a place of actual learning and teachability. So it always starts with the self, the internal work to prepare yourself for, just like gardening. You have to prepare the soil. The soil has to be ready for the seeds to be planted so that they can sprout and bloom.
Mm-hmm. And make sure you don't have a bunch of weeds already planted in your garden.
Yeah.
I can relate to that because I garden now every year, and your guys are so right. There's work that's involved to prepare the soil. I just go throw seeds in my garden in the spring. There's a process, and you have to make it right for the seeds, and there's work, and you're right, Logan, get rid of the weeds. But there's preparation and work, and once again, with nature, it always ties in beautifully with us.
Yeah.
When you talk about it, it just comes together like it's meant to.
It's all there, man.
It's all there. Like
all knowledge, all wisdom, it comes from nature. And it's the original book of wisdom, right?
Great point. I like
That's right. That's right. So the season of sacrifice, right? It's the 40 days, and it ends on May 1st. May Day, right? Which was the high holiday of the Nazis as well.
Wasn't that like Valshalder? I can't pronounce it.
Walpurgisnacht.
That's it.
Yeah, that's the midpoint between spring to summer.
Oh, okay. So another big holiday. Yeah, right. Okay, I get it now. I'm trying to remember. I've taken in so much, it's hard sometimes to keep it all in.
It would let be midsummer, like the movie.
Yeah,
right.
That's right.
Right. Very interesting.
Another propaganda piece.
Exactly.
That's what I mean. Like everything has just been inverted. That's and I keep saying it's the genius of what they're doing, the social engineers. And I've always, you have to respect them, I guess. And I actually heard Mark Pascal say that you have to respect them as an adversary because they're so good at what they do. I mean, you just have to look at the weight underside of this. Yeah, and that's what I try to tell people. You have no idea what you're up against. And then they think I'm crazy and I'm a conspiracy theorist and I'm a doom and gloom guy. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm just trying to point out that you were up against people that know the psychology of the human, of humanity and of people and what triggers them and all these things. They're masters at it. And they're in it. How you can't look out in the world and not see that is beyond me. You have to be willingly blind to not see how good they are at what they're doing. It's masterfully done.
You got to be a Nazi to not see.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's incredible. Yeah, but thank you guys so much once again for coming on here. I was really looking forward to this one and learned a lot. I hope everyone that's listening is taking a lot of great stuff. There's some great stuff in these 2 hours.
This might have been my favorite yet.
Yeah, we're getting good at it, that's for sure. And
yeah,
I'm looking forward to the next one for sure. This is going to be a great series. I think a very powerful series. that's going to give people a lot of insight. And I'm just checking the time because I want to make sure I give you guys time just to let people know what you got going on. I know, Will, you're doing your show, you got presentations going on, you got a lot going on. So can you let people know anything that you want them to know, anything that you want them to go check out on your site? The floor is yours. We got a few minutes, so I'll give it to you, Will, and then we'll pass it to Logan. We got like 4 minutes here to just break it down.
Great. Yeah, no, thanks for having us back on, Rick.
Cool.
I love these sessions. The chemistry with us three is fantastic. And so thanks to all the listeners for tuning in and sacrificing your time and attention to invest. And hopefully you got value. And if you did, you can go to my personal official website is willkeller.com. And yes, I am doing my live show every other Wednesday. It's a live presentation with open discussion at the end. So anyone's free to join, to hop on and share their thoughts at the end of these live shows. So again, you can go to all my social media links as well. And again, it's willkeller.com.
Perfect. All right.
Awesome.
And you want to hit there, Logan, let people know where they can find all your amazing work.
Absolutely. Thanks again for having me and Will on your show, Rick. This is always a ton of fun. And again, thanks to the listeners. Hopefully we planted some seeds into fertile ground, to take roots. So if you did, again, check out my website, thewizardfactory.com. That is my platform, mainly focused towards my YouTube channel. So if you want to go subscribe there on the Wizard Factory channel, and you can follow me also on social media. All the links are at my website right up at the top of thewizardfactory.com. So see you there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, please check out their sites, guys, and go show some support. They're both doing amazing stuff, amazing work, getting this information out there. I love the fact, too, that, Will, that you do have a live part at the end of your show, like where people can come and just chat and give their opinions on what has been discussed. And you're very open to anyone coming on and having a discussion. They can ask you what they want. And I think more people need to do that. I think that's
I encourage it. I encourage it.
Absolutely.
Logan's definitely a regular participant.
For sure.
I always appreciate his insight, and it's been real fun. A lot of engagement. So yeah, anyone, come on up. It can be video or audio.
That's so cool. Yeah, I love that. And it's a great thing to do that, people's comments and get their thoughts. So thank you guys once again for doing what you do. I love you guys both. I really do. I've learned so much, and I continue to learn from both of you. And so it's amazing. Thank you, everyone who's taken the time to come and listen. I appreciate each and every one of you. You make it all worthwhile doing it. You really do. So thank you guys so much. And I will be back Thursday, the Crypt and Jonathan show, same time, same place. We will be here. And I'm just looking forward to having a great week and have a happy winter day, or whatever you want to call it. And take care, guys.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.